Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Hello everyone. Now, we are going to discuss the chapter about implementing and managing engaging instruction in the classroom. Before starting the discussion, let us introduce the member of this group. There are Devi Anastasia Budiawati Teguh, Dinda Sausan Lestari, Ardelianda Augesla, and myself, Rukmamaya Adi Chandra. The first discussion is about introducing of this chapter. There is an important relationship between engaging instruction and effective classroom management. The more motivated and engaged students are in the lesson, the fewer behavior problems will arise. In short, the fourth component of classroom management is engaging instruction, which involves using instructional techniques that increase students' motivation and interest in learning. Engaging and motivating instruction goes a long way toward eliminating behavior problems before they start. To implement a lesson smoothly, teachers must develop a clear understanding of the many managerial tasks that they must attend to before, during, and after a lesson in order to implement an engaging and motivating lesson. Following are some of those tasks: the first before a lesson, the second during a lesson, and the third after a lesson. Alright, for the next slide will be explained by my friends.
Okay, there are four important points that should be considered by a teacher before a lesson when they want implement and manage an engaging instruction in the class. The first is consider the physical design. We need to consider additional specific issues related to the physical environment. For example, can the current physical design of the classroom accommodate this lesson or activity? Sometimes you may have a wonderful idea for an activity to support a particular concept, but the room may not be accommodating. The second is plan for the necessary materials. Materials can be the items that are pretty standard in the classroom, such as chalkboards, chart paper, markers, rulers, and etc. But now, however, the growing popularity of technology, we can now using interactive whiteboards, PowerPoints, and etc. Whether the materials and equipment are readily available or not, we should be aware of the materials required for the lesson and develop a plan to obtain those materials. The third is consider the number of students. When planning a lesson, we should be flexible enough to account for the changing number of students who are in the classroom during a given time period and develop a plan for how to help the students who were not present during the lesson learn the necessary material. The last, but of course not the least, decide how to group students. We need to think about how we will group students. For example, will students be grouped by interest or academic ability? Can students choose their own groups or will you assign the groups? In addition, how will you direct students to move into their groups?
Hello, my name is Devi Anastasia Budiawati Teguh. After we listen about before a lesson from Dinda, now I am going to explain to you about during a lesson. There are 6 points that you have to focus on during a lesson. First, incorporate relevant content. It is necessary for students to feel that content they are learning is related to their lives. Relevance helps students to see that the content is worth knowing. Basically, if the students see a purpose for what they are learning, they will be more willing to spend their time and effort and will stay engaged in the lesson. Second, provide clear instructions. Be sure to apply obvious step-by-step direction. An effective way to double check the clearness of our direction is to ask the students to repeat the directions. All in all, being clear is the best way to lower the possibilities of interruptions and misunderstandings. Third, teach collaborative work skills. Students need to be taught how to work in groups. This is not something that students naturally know how to do. It needs clear direction and practice in skills such as listening, sharing, complimenting, and challenging one another's ideas. Fourth, plan for transitions. A transition is a change in activity. A transition is something that helps move children from one activity to another. An example would be moving from one classroom to another, switching from one subject to another, and many more. Fifth, monitor progress and provide feedback. Monitoring students' work and providing feedback will help students stay engaged. Students improve most when they are given clear and prompt feedback on their progress. This method supports the teacher to see what the students are doing and whether or not they have understood the key concepts. This also allows you to refocus students who needs attention, offer suggestions about how to improve, or to compliment students when they are doing something well. And the last but not least, monitor student behavior. It is important to clearly observe students to see how they are doing. It is a good idea to have a plan for what you will do if a student clearly cannot handle the lesson and is extremely troublesome. I think that's all from Devi. Next will be explained by Maya.
Okay, now we're gonna talk about after a lesson. There are organize and assess student work and also engage in reflection. For the first, organize and assess student work. For students to stay engaged in the learning process, they need timely and helpful feedback about their progress. To supply these, you can develop a system to efficiently collect, assess, and record student work. How about engage in reflection? Reflecting on a lesson after the fact is one of the most effective strategies for improving your teaching. Understanding the reciprocal relationship between engaging, motivating instruction, and effective classroom management goes a long way in preventing behavior problems and thus preserving precious classroom time for learning.
Hi, I am Ardelianda Augesla. So we move to implementing and managing engaging instruction. As my friends told before, engaging instruction is one of the components of classroom management, which involves using instructional techniques that encourage students' motivation and interest in learning. After we talk about many managerial tasks that teacher must master at before, during and after a lesson, we are going to discuss into our three teachers' classroom and see how they bring it all together to motivate and engage their students. First, Amy, first grade. Based on the Amy's experience, Amy knows that there are some advanced planning decisions and some preparations with the class that must take place to allow the healthy derby to go smoothly. She briefs students by explaining all the procedures, and all students are awarded with certificates of participations for their hard work and holds a short discussion with the class after the class finished. Second and fifth grade, and choose to make planning a science lesson in which students develop their own explanation of what happens to the human body during exercise. And prepared by gathering all the materials, make sure the student and decides to arrange them in groups of four. After that, and use the last 5 minutes to summarize key concepts discovered during the activity and explain how this material will lead into tomorrow's science lesson. Third, Team 9th grade history. Team prepares certain things ahead of time and makes several decisions before introducing the idea in order to hold a mock trial with his class. On the last day, team assigns a one-page reflection paper for homework to explain what the student learned from the experience. From those three examples of teachers' experience that have been mentioned, we can conclude that implementing and managing engaging instruction is not something that can be underestimated by a teacher, considering the teacher must have a clear understanding of what they have to do before, during, and after class. Before the class starts, Amy, Anne, and Tim consider the physical design briefly. They think carefully about the plan they will do so that everything runs smoothly. They also consider the number of students to make sure there will be students who not present in that day, and then decide how to group students if requires students to work with other students. As we read, during a lesson, they also work on existing components when learning process start according to what they have prepared before class. We all know that if the teacher has carefully prepared before class, it will help a lot in the learning process, thereby reducing errors and misbehavior. Then, they are compelled to do the same thing when the class is over, like organizing and assessing student work and engaging in reflection. Like how Amy thinks the derby race was a successful lesson and is satisfied with the lesson and feels that her learning goals were achieved, and look how Tim was pleased with the project. However, in the other sides, they learn more about what they have done in that day so they can revise and correct some of the deficiencies they are aware of, and after the self-reflections. That will be very helpful so that next lesson is better than today. Next, in the student voices, we can see if there are four students talk about engaging instructions that they ever had with their teachers and what they want to do when they are learning in the classroom. They have their respective opinions about engaging instructions that they like, such as using interesting tools like blocks, cubes when learning math, using technology, working and discussing tasks in groups, or even to keep in everyone's mind learning style and the idea of multiple intelligences when playing the lessons. All four students agreed that the more engaging a lesson is, the less likely students are to misbehave. In light of this result, it's important that teachers strive to make all their lessons meaningful and engaging. Maybe that's all from our group. We are really sorry if there are some mistakes. Thank you so much for your attention. See you next time.